I'm Jerry Marotta. This is Michael Cozzi.
Hello there.
Guitar player, engineer, producer, bon vivant, general,
numbers
chief
expert.
cook and bottle washer, I think they call it here, for the Security Project and many others. I'm Jerry Marotta. I'm a drummer. That's basically all I do. Nothing more. And here we are on Facebook Live. I'm not even sure I understand what it is that we're doing. Or
Oh, we get to see ourselves then.
look at that.
Yeah.
I've got to lose some weight and maybe dye my hair.
I need my glasses.
3 people on?
So we're going to go through some questions. We're going to have an additional special guest who will show up eventually. I'm looking over some questions here. Okay, let's start number one. Ken Kaprowski. Could only be from one place, Cleveland, Ohio. Kaprowski. Jerry, I will tell folks about the Cleveland gig. Wow, good guess. But remember the baseball game last year? Of course I do. Because when we played, last year when we played in Chicago at that festival,
Yeah.
it was the night
Reggie's.
that the Cubs won the pennant.
Right.
And then, I don't know, a couple days later, we played in Cleveland, where I was born, where my cousins, my family live, including Ken Kaprowski, who's one of my cousins. And even my cousins, who are super supportive, all said, sorry.
Yeah.
But it was the first night of the World Series, and the Indians were in it.
Yeah.
And so many of my cousins did actually come and watch, but they were in the bar watching.
We could actually hear the game from the back alley.
Yeah, we could hear the game, and they were. It was great. It was a great night. Sadly, the Indians did not win the World Series, but the Cubs did, and that was a good thing. So yes. So anyway, Mr. Kaprowski, there's no World Series this time around, and that gig is on. When is that? It's next Tuesday, I think, in Cleveland at the Beachland Ballroom. Yes.
There he is.
Perfect.
Good
Now I
timing.
don't have to be so.
Do you have a script?
No, they're questions.
Oh.
I have a script.
You're on, by the way.
Trey
Introduce
walks.
yourself.
Trey enters room.
Are they with us now?
With Jack.
Yeah.
We're on Facebook
10
Live.
people watching right now.
There's 10 people watching. 10 whole people. Maybe even that might even be all the people that were at the first gig in Kingston.
Maybe.
All 10 of them. Okay.
Now there's
Here's a question. Leon Alvarado.
Yeah. We made a record here.
You'll come down to Texas, why don't you?
Oh, he's the questioner.
That's his question.
Okay.
Then there's others.
Are you only on the first question?
Well, I was waiting for you. No, I did one question.
Can we use foul language, or is that against the censorship code?
It
I
gets
don't
beeped
know.
out.
Does it get beeped out?
Yeah,
Are
automatically.
you?
I'm not beeping.
It's on the phone. It's an app.
Oh, okay.
Let's test
Here's
it.
a good one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mo Chapman.
No,
Where were the craziest crowds on your tours with Peter Gabriel? Now this one is good because you
Do you want me to answer that one?
you could answer that about King Crimson or any other tour that you've done. Craziest crowds for Peter Gabriel, I would have to say that's a very hard question to answer. When I first started working with Peter, the UK crowds were pretty crazy. But mind you, back then it was like 90% like guys who thought they were rail or wanted to be rail with black leather
I was going to
jackets,
say, did they dress up?
and that was mostly what they were.
Yeah.
And their occasional disgruntled girlfriend who did not want to be there because they weren't prog fans. The Fate de Humanity was an interesting gig. That was the one outside of Paris. There were 180,000 people at that
What does
show.
that mean? Fate to.
It was
festival
it's a
or
communist festival. It happens over a weekend. It's like it's one of those things like Rock Palast where if you can get it, it's like the whole world sees it, or the whole world except for America.
Right.
But that was a huge show, and that was just incredible to play to that many people. That's like a sea of people. What about you, Crimson? Any crazy crowds?
Halloween night in New Orleans at the House of Blues with the full moon lunar eclipse. There were some wackos there.
Ooh.
Yeah.
One Crimson show somewhere, I don't remember, it might have been in New York. There was a very elderly lady, maybe not, I wouldn't think she was so elderly anymore, but she was probably 70 in the show, sitting in an aisle, got up in the middle of the show, I think it was in the middle of Thrak or some really intense instrumental, walked right to the front of the stage, the only person standing, looked at us, and then walked out of the hall.
Yeah, baby. What about you? Anything?
The only one that comes to mind is not so much crazy, but it was the one show we did in Minneapolis, Sky Cries Mary,
Yeah.
where there was more people on stage than there were in the crowd. But it was still a great
I
show.
played that gig.
You've had that one? You've done those? Is it 7th Street entry? The small room, or 9th Street entry in Minneapolis. Tiny club. It's Prince's Place. Huge club above. Huge gig above that he normally plays. And the basement one, we were in that one.
Yeah.
Literally less people in the crowd.
Not the 9 o'clock club.
Ninth, I want to say either 7th Street entry or 9th Street entry.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Sure.
One of those two.
Now, if it wasn't a Peter Gabriel tour, Hall & Oates tour, I mean, we did a show in Arizona where Hall & Oates was like the opposite of Gabriel. 90% beautiful girls and 10%
10% beautiful boys.
guys. Yeah, gay guys who were into Daryl or John. It was so hot and it was such a frenzy that we almost, and I spearheaded this, like for the third encore, I said, let's just go out naked. Everybody, let's go out, like get a club. It was just that, sometimes it happens, you get to that place where you just like, it was so intense. It's like, come on, man, let's everybody take their clothes off, let's just go out and play the last song naked. That was pretty intense.
Isn't that kind of the opposite ratio to a TSP gig? Pretty much?
No.
Or maybe more. Well,
What,
it depends.
girls to guys?
Yeah.
We have a female singer.
Well, we have Happy, and that's going to draw a lot of women. She's going to draw a lot of girls. But
She's the only thing that draws the girls.
You know what's funny? My brother, who's also a drummer, you know him, you've worked with him. He toured with Linda Ronstadt, and I remember going, I said, it must be a drag, touring with Ronstadt. This is in the 80s when she was like at the height of her career. Like, it's probably not a lot of girls. And he was like, oh no. Lots of women, a lot of females. Huge female. She had a huge female following. The girls are smarter. They really are. Oh, by the way, we want to just know you guys to know that in case anybody out there is wondering and wants to ask a question that doesn't pertain to Peter Gabriel or King Crimson, is Michael played with Andrew Ridgeley from Wham, who was George Michael's partner. That's what they started out together. And did they used to put like shuttlecocks down their shorts or something?
Oh, God, no,
I just remember hearing they were like wearing like tennis.
I don't think you can say that on
Tennis clothes.
It just be.
No, they used to put shuttlecocks down their tennis shirts. And then also he played with Shakespeare's sister, which was a really great.
Short while on that one.
Yeah, it was Dave Stewart's wife.
That's right, Siobhan.
And
Siobhan Fahey.
who's now in Bananarama.
She back again? Are they doing it again?
Yes.
They are?
Well, the two, she left and they carried on.
Right.
They now have her back and she joined the band again.
I did not know that.
Yeah. She joined the band again.
And he mixed all the records.
Right. He mixed
All of our records.
Right. When I
already
initially
did that.
I already had said that. Production, mixing, engineering, everything. Josette Caruso, who I think we may see tomorrow night. We may see her tomorrow. No,
Okay.
no. What was the most challenging song you recorded with Peter Gabriel, and why? Most challenging song? You know what? It was such a long time ago, I don't really remember. But they were all challenging. Because that's the way Peter made it. All of it, you know, nothing was easy. It was always, to some degree, fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't morbid or anything, but it was intense. But it was a good kind of intense.
Yeah.
And we used to get our aggression out by going out and playing croquet. There was a lot of croquet going on.
Oh yeah, croquet.
Yeah. Right there at the Ashcombe House.
That's a
there was
finesse game, though. Were you
a big
whacking
one.
them?
Yeah, that's how we got
Right.
kind of like we evened out our differences in
Right.
the studio, but by hitting people with your croquet mallet with your ball. So there really isn't any one song I can remember. I would say all of Security, the record Security. If you listen to it and you know the record, you know, Lay Your Hands on Me, Family in the Fishing Net, all of that stuff was, as we know because we're playing it, it's really unusual. It's really not like rock music, you know? It's way different. It's almost like theater in a way. And so they're not like straight, like the second record, like with On the Air and DIY and White Shadow, you know, those songs are much more
Like an old
sort of
song,
straight, rock and straight, ironically, which is funny because Robert Fripp produced that record. And
Which one? The second one?
the second one, I think. And those songs were on a DIY and White Shadow. And so, but the third record started to get a little more complicated, and Security was the most in-depth, kind of weird. But that's basically, but it was always enjoyable to a large degree.
Did you ever get a sense of what was the standout songs, or like what would be the hit, or nothing stood out like that?
No, you know what? I thought I Have the Touch at the time, and you know, the nature of the song, we know because we play it, is it's got a hit kind of format with a loop, a dance loop thing, and it's got a real pop kind of hook to it, and I thought that was going to be the hit. But it wasn't. It wasn't. No. Not for us. But then I remember the Talking Heads did a song, "Burning Down the House," and then I remember many people were like, "Did you guys get credit for?" Like, it was sort of, and I love Talking Heads, they're great, but they were surely influenced by I think might have been I Have the Touch. And they, of course, did a lot better with it than Peter did. What else? You want to read some questions?
Lisa Wetton,
Hello, Lisa. Lisa.
who we kind of know. I haven't met her. Have you met
Yeah,
her?
I have not met her, but
She's
I'm
watching.
hoping that
Yeah.
in Syracuse.
Watching right now.
Oh, maybe.
I
Is that where
don't
she
know.
lives up there?
She was in the Syracuse, Rochester area until she moved to the UK to be with John.
Here's her question.
What's your question?
I'm always curious about the practical drill regimens of professional drummers. Can you tell us your practice routine, if you have one, and what it entails?
Very easy.
Great
I already
question.
know.
Never ever pick up a pair of drumsticks
Right.
unless it's either they're being recorded. It's the
Right.
same way I feel about playing the saxophone. I've only played saxophone in front of at least 10,000 people,
Right.
and or when I'm recording, like we did a version of Tequila with Tony Levin, the Tony Levin band, and I played saxophone on that. I don't have any.
So in front of 10,000 people, unless you're playing tequila.
No, not drumming. That was my that's saxophone. But for the drums, I honestly don't ever remember practicing at all. And I mean, obviously, it shows. And in my playing, but
I mean, you gig or record or perform of some sort almost every day, right?
I play a lot.
Yeah.
I play a lot, but I do not sit home
Right.
working on
Yeah.
something. Like I've worked on songs to learn how to, to learn to play a song,
Right.
preparing for a tour, but I don't sit home practicing anything like, I guess, Marco Miniman, like a guy like that who's just
Would
got
have to be. He would have to.
so, didn't you do a record? Didn't you take a thing that his regimen every day is to play for 50 minutes?
51-minute drum solo that he does every morning.
Right, to warm up for
Really?
his day. Yeah.
51 minute?
Yeah.
Why?
Have you
Well,
heard-
it's not always exactly that length, but
Right.
the form of it is
Right.
these things and then that thing. And then. So he recorded it one time and got 7 people to make a full record on top of that.
One of them is. Did you never heard that?
Is that the one with
He
the...
did that.
He doesn't listen to music.
Yeah.
And you know what?
He's got that right. He's got that right, actually.
That's why his mixes are so great. Because he's not trying to make it sound like anything but what he wants it to sound like.
Michael O'Connor, is he watching? Well, it doesn't matter.
Mickey O'Connor. Mickey
Michele.
Will Jerry Marotta sing on any future Security Project tracks? I'm hoping for a version of Across the River or Mercy Street a cappella. A cappella.
a cappella.
Let's do it now.
Well, it's hard to say. I'm always hopeful that I'll get to sing on something. Of course, live I sing back in New York City, and when my throat clears up, perhaps on the air as well. And then we never know. But I mean, at the moment, Happy Rhodes is our lead singer. So, but I mean, honestly, we have a couple of early stage demos of Shock the Monkey. Trey started with something, he had an idea, and he did like a rearrangement of Shock the Monkey, which sounds great. Then Michael got a hold of it and he did his tweaking to it, but he also sang the song, which I think that it would be hard to beat that. He did a great job of singing it, so I'm hoping that you'll get to hear this guy on the next record singing a song like Shock the Monkey.
Christopher Smalls asking about White Shadow.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that Christopher Smalls? That's not.
He's asked. He's
He's live asking about White Shadow.
Hey
If you'll ever
Christopher,
add
thanks
it.
for tuning in. What do you want to know about White Shadow? Like
Whether we're going to play it or something, or what?
Yeah, if it'll be added to the set list.
Yeah, we used to, didn't we?
we have played in the past. We really can't play every song. In fact, it's so, as you can imagine, it's so complicated working up each of the songs
Yeah.
that we have to focus on. We pick the songs we think we're going to do, and it's hard to add the extra ones only because there's a lot to learn, particularly for David Jamison, our keyboard player. It's a tremendous amount of work. He's got a huge workload.
It sounds like he's saying no, but I'm not really sure.
No, that we're not going to play it.
It'll pop up at some point.
Well,
you know.
I don't know. Does Happy know it? Can she sing it?
I don't know.
It would
Should we
boil
get her
down.
on the phone?
It would be.
Yeah, that'd be
It
funny.
would boil down to
That would
Happy.
be funny.
We could pull it off, but it's a matter of Happy knowing it. And
Yeah.
again, she has even more so than David.
Yeah.
She has to remember all those lyrics.
Yeah, that's a lot to say at first.
And yeah, David's our keyboard player's using MIDI and gig butt
Gig performer.
gig performer.
Give
And-
shuttlecock.
Exactly.
All with no shuttlecocks down there.
Gig young, and so that helps him, but she really has to learn and memorize every lyric. So we have played it, and we will play it again in the future.
Jason Douglas Moore. I love the end sections of Games Without Frontiers of These Hope. How did you arrive at that arrangement and create such a groove and mood? Do you remember?
Absolutely. It was Fusby,
It was
right?
Fusby.
Go ahead, you talk. You tell the story.
Fusby had the idea. I don't actually know how he came up with it.
Who is Fusby, by the way?
Who is Fusby? You tell who Fusby is.
Well, Fusby was the first guitar player in the Security Project, and he did, I don't know, a tour or two with us, lives in L.A. He's my close friend, great musician, phenomenal guy. He had this idea.
I think it was just a brainstorm, kind of small genius moment, you know, that he pictured the two things.
It was obviously
No,
in his head.
You wanted to extend games, and we tried it, and it wasn't working. And then he thought, "Oh, wow, this sounds like that. Let's try that."
Yeah, I mean,
And so we did.
I think the idea for all of us is where we can to kind of maybe branch off a little bit, to be able to be a little bit more of ourselves rather than just playing Peter's songs, which, by the way, I have no problem playing the music that we play. It's phenomenal. But we probably started jamming on it, and then Fuzzy came in and said, "This could be a great jumping off point.
Right.
Check this out." And it's from The Last Temptation of Christ.
Yeah, and then once we were in that, then I thought there's this great 7 riff, and so we added this riff in 7 and merged it with the chords, and it was
Exactly.
a nice mashup.
That was the birth of the term the cloud as well. When you came up with that term, the cloud, you were trying to describe a sound you wanted to get.
Yeah.
That's how a lot of that sort of opens, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Real atmospheric thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know if I came up with the term, but it's certainly a good.
Yeah. It was.
Because I usually only steal things. I don't have any original ideas.
Peter Abate. So Jerry, what's
Peter Abate.
Abate.
Peter, if you're out there, I think we're related somehow.
So Jerry, what song would you say you did your best drumming on in your whole career?
That's a tall question.
Wow. Peter.
I mean, there's.
Maybe we should answer that question.
Well, lately the TikTok thing
Yeah.
what's he doing now? I love that thing.
The best thing he
And
did
I'm
this
just
week.
remembering. I forget to do it.
Leave it normal.
I just love that. It's so inspirational.
Yeah. Good. I mean, lay your hands on me.
Yeah, I was going to say that's
would
pretty-
be. I mean, I get such joy. I never get tired playing it. Is one. I mean, Kiss of Life
Yeah, that's
in
the
its
other one.
original form, I would say, because of what was done to it, that may be a case of where Peter went a little too far, speeding the tape up, screwing around with it, doing things to it.
That's
you know,
super fast, yeah.
that one song, which I keep meaning to like maybe now that we're out, maybe at sound check, we'll like maybe look at it to see if we can just start having some fun with it.
Yeah.
But those are the Peter songs.
On that, Alex Sebastian asked, how did you get that drum sound? So, on
Kiss of Life.
Yeah.
I think the key element there was we were recording back then. It was just 2-inch tape. There was no digital, and there were no plugins. There was nothing you could do except you could speed a tape up or slow it down a little. You could flip the tape upside down, and it would sound backwards. So I think it got flipped. The tape got sped up, and we played it in, and it was one of those times with Peter where he wanted to do like a funky, like R&B funky rockin', not like Family in the Fishing Net or Lay Your Hands on Me. It was like to have some fun, some funky fun.
So why is Alex saying, though I already know the answer, I find this is too funny to miss for everyone else? Because that wasn't that funny.
My question just came in.
I don't know, Alex. I know I love you, and I worked on Alex's record doing drums for him. He has a great record out, and he lives in Germany, but I don't really know what sped up tape. Maybe I don't know what else.
I wouldn't mind knowing what they think your best drumming is.
Yeah, what's his best drumming? Meanwhile, are we talking about this question, the pop song that was recorded and scrapped for another arrangement?
Sure, yeah.
On Gabriel's Scratch album became what track? Jerry mentioned this as a sure hit, and Peter said, now that's out of our system.
Ring a bell?
Who was that?
Jason Douglas Moore. The pop song that was recorded and scrapped for another arrangement on the Scratch record.
Okay. Oh, Scratch. Okay, yeah.
Peter said that basically you got that out of your system.
You guys have heard this. We went to Holland, Relight Studio, where Genesis had recorded as well. So we knew it was going to be fun. It was going to be good, and a residential studio. And this was one song. Peter had this idea. He's doing the piano, and we worked it up like a normal session. As close to a normal session as I've ever done with Peter. And after about an hour or two, it was like we went and listened to the control room, and it was like it sounded as close to a hit record, you know. And this was pre I Have the Touch, so it sounded like a hit, you know. It wasn't more up on the Burgermeister or Slow Burn,
right.
and so we listened back to it, and it sounded really awesome. And Peter said, "Okay, now we know exactly how we're not going to do this song. Like, now that we've gotten that out of our system."
I see.
And
So what did it turn into?
I don't know what it turned into. I don't. And you know what's even a bigger drag is I have a cassette tape.
Of the original?
No, better. Back then, Peter had, of course, didn't write any lyrics, but he was singing into a microphone with like harmonizer, like a bunch of effects, and so it's like it was vibey. So the tape sounds like, "'Cause he's the ho, how can he ho, leave me alone, leave me alone." But he was singing really good, and I was in the control room, and the engineer soloed his vocal.
Right.
And I had the wherewithal to hit record, and I recorded it, and we were staying in this farmhouse, and the last night I had a boombox. We all had our rooms, and Peter went to bed, and I grabbed the boombox. He didn't even know that I had it, and I put it down right at the front of his door, and I pressed play, and it was just the vocal. So it sounded like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It's like a guy who you don't know what he's singing, and it's all kinds of effects on it. Well, the door flew open, and he chased me around the farmhouse. I'm like carrying this, and I could run him back then easily. And he chased me around, but I wouldn't give up. But somewhere in my collection of cassette tapes, as you know, unmarked cassettes, there's like that exists, that vocal exists. Maybe I should try to find that.
You're good at collecting those
We
things.
could write a song around
We
it.
could, yeah.
Who recorded the Snorchestra?
Him.
That's an acapella song we could probably play.
What are we talking about?
The Snorchestra.
Oh, you mean the tour bus in Europe,
Yeah.
where everyone was snoring. That's true.
Did I answer that question about the... Yes, I did.
Did you meet Trey through the rehearsals for Thrak?
No.
Or did you meet me?
No, I don't... No.
No.
We had met long before that. Here?
Well, no, I guess...
No, I mean in New York,
you
I
came to my
think.
place in New York.
We kind of... Our paths crossed, and then...
But it wasn't because of the Sylvian record?
No, well, I don't know. Here's the thing. I mean, I knew Robert because he had produced the second Gabriel solo record. And from that point on,
And you played on...
I played on Exposure.
Yeah.
Well, that was a trip. We go into the studio. First of all,
Let's hear about that. I want to hear about that.
you know, the Holland, in Holland, we're in Holland. Robert's producing that record. The first night we're there, before anybody gets there, our tour manager Robert and I go to a club, like a rock club in Holland, and it was like your quintessential was unbelievable, packed, sweaty, great. This band, I remember, it was called Vitesse. Band called Vitesse, 2 guitars, bass, and drums. Awesome. I have every one of their records. So a guy on a break comes and finds us, and he says to Robert, the band wanted to let you know if you want to come, if you want to sit in with the band. They would love to have you sit in. And I didn't know Robert at all. I only knew his reputation, and I thought, I'm going to last like 15 minutes with this guy, and I'm going to be on a plane headed back home. Well, this is where part of what made us like this at the time. So he said, no, I'm not going to do that. The guy goes away, and he turns to me and he goes, either one of those guitar players on a bad night would mop the floor with me. It's exactly what he said. Anytime anybody speaks like that, especially somebody like Robert, I mean, and these two guitar players were phenomenal. You know, they were like rock and funk. They had it worked out, but they were great. The band was amazing. I just thought after everything I had heard about Robert, all the stories, for him to say that, like, it just wasn't the last thing you'd expect to hear out of him.
So how did Exposure come about, or was that over there, or in New York? Must have been in New York.
No, Exposure was in London.
Oh.
But so the first day we were in the studio
For Peter's record.
for Peter's record, we do the session, we get set up, we start playing, and Robert says, would you stay after the session, please? and so again, I
I have
don't
an
know.
airplane ticket for you.
Exactly. I don't know. I don't know Robert at all. I wait. Everybody leaves. I stay. He said, "Oh, come into the control room." I go into the control room. The engineer is setting up 2 Revox tape machines, like that one right there. That's the exact machine, but 2 of them. And in the control room, and he said, "Oh, sit down." And he sits down, and he proceeds to do like a Frippertronics. He did like a 25-minute piece. And I realized this was his way, I think, of saying, I like you. I think, you know what I mean? Like, he allowed me, because I don't think he like
Private
invited
concert.
a lot of people to watch him do what he does. It just didn't seem to be like that. So then that I was like, whew, you know, I'm in for another day. I'm smart enough to know it only means another day. Doesn't mean I'm in for good. But then we got along really well. And then in London, he said, "Come down to the studio." I think it was the Townhouse. He said, "I want you to play on my record." He used to call me Fat Ape on drums. I think he really liked the simplicity of a guy who
Did he
never
call you
practiced.
Fat Ape back then, or did he
He
call
did.
you Wild Ape?
He called me Fat Ape on drums, even though I wasn't fat then. I mean, I am now. He also wrote he autographed something for me, and he said "Cunty Face Marotta." He used to call me that. I'm
There's a beep on that one.
bleep it out.
Did you played on the track Exposure?
Yeah,
Did you play on anything else on that record?
I don't know.
Okay.
I might have. I don't know why I wouldn't have, but
Are there drums on Here Come the Flood? Did you play that?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Did you play it on Peter's record?
On no.
Okay.
No, Flood was off the first record, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. But here's the thing.
I don't know.
No, Flood was not me. I think it was on the
I
first
thought it was
record.
on the second record that Robert produced. And
Was
the
first.
first.
He knows.
Okay, all right,
AJ
he knows. We
knows.
trust AJ.
But here's the funny thing. I get to the Townhouse in London. Robert, yes, Jerry, come in. Go out in the studio. Play any beat you want. That was what we did. He said, play any beat, and I can't remember. I don't remember
Is this
whether.
Exposure?
Yeah, and I don't know if he played. He did it on the spot,
Or he put it in
or if
later?
he had it already recorded,
Oh, and was playing it along
or
with you?
he had me go out and start playing, and then I don't really quite remember. Maybe that's Robert.
No, it's David.
Was Tony?
David Jefferson's doing it.
No,
No.
Tony wasn't playing with you?
not
Tony
that I
did an
remember. I
overdub.
thought it was just Robert and I.
Okay.
And then Tony might have overdubbed. It
Was it
might,
this-
back then it might have been made sense for Robert to do something of his own with just me, or like
Right,
you know what I
right,
mean,
right,
not to
right,
have a band
right,
come
right,
in,
right.
but because I don't know if he knew what he wanted to
And
do.
is Eno on that song? Do you know? Is that Eno's voice?
I don't.
We have to go back and refer to that record because
Yeah,
who
yeah,
knows
yeah.
what's on there.
Was that the one with the stone room? Were you in the stone room?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a
the Stone Room. I did many a record in that
Right.
room, which was great studio. I'm not
Anyway,
sure.
we first worked together here with David Sylvian and Robert.
Right, but what was the Jenny Bird record before or after,
After.
that? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's still one of my favorite records, and Trey was living in Taos just like so. Probably why I did the record was a singer-songwriter from New Mexico. Jenny Bird, Trey knew her and maybe had played with her. She had been badgering me to produce a record for her, and
In her Earthship.
yeah, on the Mesa. It was an incredible experience. It's one of my favorite records that I've ever produced. It's great, simple, didn't cost a lot to make. It was in New Mexico on the Mesa, which probably had something to do with it. I remember more us rehearsing, you and Robert and I playing together at my old Stu Jerry's Philly in the barn.
Yeah.
In that barn.
That's right.
And then, but we were gearing up for this Sylvian record.
Yeah.
And then it
But
turns out
David couldn't come.
David couldn't come to rehearsals
because his visa was messed up.
exactly. But although wasn't he living in Minnesota?
I
Maybe
don't-
he thought that you needed a visa to get.
Maybe
to
you do
here
need a visa
from
from Minnesota.
Anyway, yeah. So I don't know if it was one of the early times of us playing together was here, recording that record, the Sylvian Fripp record.
A fellow named Jerry Lofaro asks, "What do you want for breakfast on November 10th?"
Meatballs for 80.
Of course, some kind of some kind of Italian dish, leftover pasta warmed up.
Well, we're running thin here. For the Peter Gabriel versions that had, you probably, maybe you know this, versions in German, were the instruments recorded twice or
No.
just re-recorded vocals? That would be awesome to make the whole record again.
To make it again in a German style. Like, what would that be like? Would that just be... Yeah, sure. We wore lederhosen and we recorded all some... No, I think... No, Peter just redid re-sang the songs and he sang them in German.
He remixed it a little too.
Here we go.
Oh, well,
Didn't
Peter's
re-record, yeah.
always gonna tinker. There's no getting around it. Now, part of the tinker mentality back then is that for the real serious fans, they have to buy both records.
Right.
Which I remember, I'm sorry, Peter, but I only remember hearing this from Peter, that Elvis Costello was doing a thing back then where the import and the record, he would put a few different songs or a couple different songs on the import and on the non-record, so that if you wanted those songs, you had to buy, and we're talking LPs now, or
Right.
no digital, you had to buy both records,
Right.
which is very clever.
For some reason, you're reminding me, this is totally irrelevant, not totally, but Pat was telling me he worked with Joe Zawinul once. Pat
Oh, yeah.
Mastelotto.
Yeah, Pat Mastelotto.
And then he said that Joe would do an overdub during the mix. He would save a shaker part and do it on the mix while they were mixing down, so that every mix was unique.
Really?
And it had a performance element
Yeah.
in the mix.
The mix on the mastering.
The mix. Yeah.
You know what's interesting,
That would
but
piss off a lot of people.
one thing that's kind of is interesting is if obviously he's like a genius piano keyboard player, but if you do something simple and repetitive like that, and you put headphones on, it may give you a sense of the mix without listening over listening, like where you're doing something and then if you hear something jump out, you know what I mean?
Just having somebody in a room when you're mixing does that too. It makes you
Yeah.
listen to it through their ears.
That's funny.
There
That's
might be a bit
interesting.
of that too.
Vicki Williams. We know her. Do you know her? Do you know who she is?
No.
She runs Happy's website.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, we know Vicky.
Hi,
She
Vicky.
came to
Yeah.
Shank Hall and somewhere
Yeah.
else.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Hi, Vicky.
How did you come to work with Happy Rhodes on building the Colossus?
No idea.
Any anecdotes?
I
No?
think it was just I
It was
I
here.
was-
I mean, it was in New York, obviously.
yeah, it was in Woodstock. I think she was living in the area with Kevin Bartlett, who had, I think he was the record company, and he was her producer and he's extremely talented. I don't know, did you meet him?
I didn't meet him, but he was
He was
there
with Bob.
on
Happy's ex and Happy's
Yeah.
present
Yeah.
were together, and Kevin's an incredibly talented cat, and I guess, just because of the Gabriel, the background and that kind of mindset, they asked me if I would play on something or a few things. I don't remember.
We do one of those songs live now, right?
We do Collective Heart.
Yeah.
Is that from that record?
Is it?
I think I played on the record,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is funny because I'm constantly trying to figure out how to play it better than the
What we
record.
did then. Right.
Like
Randy.
what I did wrong on the record.
Did you say Randy?
Yeah, Randy Logan. Yes.
Randy Logan.
How many's on there?
Did you prefer the 45 single version of I Don't Remember or the album version?
I don't think I've ever heard the 45
It
single
has
version.
hi-hats and cymbals.
What's that?
It has cymbals.
Does it?
It's a good thing AJ is here.
I don't think I've ever heard
You
it.
knew that, or you researched
I
that?
knew that.
Good lord.
I mean, that could have been another drummer for all I know. Seriously, I don't even know. Unless, I don't know if we did a version of it with cymbals or
You
not.
should come and tell that story then.
So let me ask this question. Might be a can of worms, I don't know. I always wondered why you were not the drummer on Sledgehammer. I heard remarks from Daniel Lanois about needing swing, and Manouche Cachet was brought in on the project. I've even read Chester Thompson may have been on a session. With your obvious R&B soul background in Chester's history, what the hell happened? Did Peter just want to change drummers, or was Lanois the issue? Wow, this guy really wants some gossip.
Well, I can tell you it's a bunch of bullshit. Whatever it is. First of all, swing. I mean, I challenge Dan Lanois to any kind of a swing, anything. I swing my ass off, and regularly. So the real issue with, by the way, Dan's great and I love him. I mean,
Don't you have a story for us with the bass drum?
no.
Was that a secret story?
No, I don't know all the stories. But I mean, I can tell you this. I can't remember what song it is, but I'm sure there are many where Tony said when they were getting ready to tour some tour, there were 3 bass parts. Like there were 3 bass
On the
players
record.
on the record.
Yeah.
I mean, for me the biggest issue is that Peter's time frame to make that record was a certain time frame, and then I had agreed to do a Paul McCartney record that was another time frame but very near it, and at the last minute Peter changed his plans and he moved his thing to exactly the same time that McCartney was doing his record, and I couldn't for whatever reason I didn't feel I could back out of the McCartney record because Peter changed his plan, which he did often. In this particular case, it was a very tough one for me to decide. But with the McCartney record, it was only Paul McCartney, Eric Stewart from 10cc, and me, just the 3 of us. And Hugh Padgham was the engineer; he was the producer. So it even made it more pressure that one of the 3. It was just the 3 of us. Like if I dropped out, I mean, I'm sure he could find another drummer, but they had planned on me being the drummer. So what I was doing was, when I could, maybe on weekends, I would go to Bath to play on whatever I could of the So record. So I think I ended up playing on Red Rain or some version of it. Now, the big issue with me was we did a version of a song that ended up being big time. But our version of it was like the Security record, but the next stage, which, let's agree, it's awesome. It's awesome. But it wasn't going to sell 20 million records. It was just going to be like the Security record, so deep and heavy, and I had goosebumps for like a day and a half after we cut that track. Now, but that didn't get used, although I've heard that he released a ginormous box
Oh, maybe it's on
set,
there?
and it's got all kinds of outtakes and stuff that and you didn't you somebody tell you they had all kinds of stuff.
Somebody sent me, but it was older stuff. It
But
was-
they had alternative songs and tracks and blah blah blah. So I don't know. I don't know about the swing thing. I certainly love Dan. He's great, and I love Peter. But you know, I'm from New York, and my background is R&B, funk, not Genesis, not progressive. I didn't know who they were. I didn't know who Peter Gabriel was when I was getting on an airplane flying to England to start touring, rehearsing with him. I didn't know anything about him. So my background was I was a swing, I'm a swinger. Everybody knows that. Anyway,
How about your drumming?
my drumming, swing. I mean, Manu, Cachet, like, I don't think so. No. I don't think, I mean, Manu's a great drummer, but I mean,
Besides, who would turn down Paul McCartney? You know? Who would do that?
That would be hard.
it wasn't even that. I don't even know, because that was the end, you know?
Yeah.
That was the end between Peter and I don't know. I mean, I think I remembered like talking to Tony about it, and I can't remember if it was Tony. It might have been who said maybe he felt at the time like slighted that because he wasn't out yet, you know.
Right.
So he was Peter Gabriel playing theaters, you know, and he said maybe he felt a little slighted that you chose to work with like a more famous guy, which,
Like the most famous guy.
well, I mean, you know, it's a load of crap. Peter, I was so loyal to Peter, and you know, I stuck with him for 10 years, and even after touring with Hall and Oates, recording with Hall and Oates, who were like begging me to just join Hall and Oates, and I remained loyal to Peter. I mean, Peter, I had been working with him for many years, and I didn't feel like I just didn't even consider quitting Peter to go. You know, it was like a family. Tony, Larry Fast, David Rhodes, me, Peter. I mean, we had done a lot of playing and touring, recording together. So, and you know, it was exciting to play. You know, to go into the studio and know what we were gonna, the way we were gonna work was very different than almost anybody else I'd ever worked with. You know, we spent a lot of time figuring out what to do and jamming and, you know, how to make it cool.
Are you ever in touch with David Rhodes? Has he ever surfaced at all?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've had. He never comes here.
Yeah.
He's never here, and I'm hardly ever there.
Yeah.
But if I'm in England, I'll get in touch with him
Yeah.
and try to get together with him.
Yeah.
I think that might be it. Is there anything else?
Christopher Small asks, how about some Shriekback stories?
Yeah, come on, baby.
Oh, well, I don't know if I could tell this one. But I did learn something. Shriekback was my first professional gig, and I was learning on the go on that one. And we had this percussion player that's going to remain nameless. But
It's
Oh,
not
you
me.
mean,
It isn't me though, right?
no, it's not you. Long story short, basically, she was kind of, the percussion player was a bit mean to the crew. And
Was she American, living in England?
no, she was British.
Okay.
She was English. And we've had a few female percussion players, so it could be anyone, because I won't say who it is. But anyway, she was super mean to the crew, and they got payback at the last gig during the pranks, and I'm not going to say what happened.
Oh, come on.
Oh no, but it was nasty stuff. It was just really bad stuff. And
Who got the payback?
the
She did?
percussionist, because
They got her back.
I learned just by watching what was going on not to be, well, I'm not mean to the crew anyway, but you just do not be mean to the crew, because they'll get you back, and they certainly did. Oh, and she basically she was a percussionist that had a lot of mouth instruments
Oh,
on
I
a
see.
tray, like a
There's a few hints
Oh,
there.
yeah.
And I will just leave it at that.
Sure, a little.
We'll leave it at
What
that.
is it? What's it called? The stuff that you put on with sore muscles.
Bengay?
Bengay.
Ben-
Tiger bone?
That comparatively, that would have been kind.
Fecal matter.
That would have, yeah. There you go. Yeah. Anyway.
You know what? What's interesting? I'm sorry, and
Yeah.
maybe it's not, but you know, very early on, at a very young age, I ended up in a band called Orleans, and we had a tour manager who was like a Nazi. But I was very young. I was 18, so I mean, he loved me, and I loved him because I was a little kid. So I listened to everything he said. But he was a crew guy. Like if we got to a hotel and and there were only 5 rooms ready, the band would wait in the lobby, and the crew
really?
would get like the crew. And you know
Smart
what?
move.
I learned from them, and it's totally
Smart
true.
move, yeah.
Those guys kill themselves.
Yeah.
They kill themselves.
Yeah.
So I don't know how anybody would be unkind to a crew member. I mean, they're there long after we're done. They're there all day long, from morning, setting everything up, and then traveling on a bus. And I mean, their job is so difficult, and I really did honor those guys big time.
Did the last gig of a tour is always when they do all the pranks? Did that happen with Gabriel? Did they do any of that kind of stuff?
You know what? If they did, I don't remember.
San Jose, 1982. They put a bunch of stuffed animals on stage,
Oh, is that what
and
happened?
that's when you guys all painted you wore makeup. Tony, there's pictures in his book.
In whose book?
Tony's Road Diaries book.
Oh,
But I was at the show, and I remember the stage was full of stuffed animals. He had that single soft dog. That was a B-side to Shop the Monkey. So.
God, what, do you have a con? Do you
Tony
have that?
painted a
remembers
face on
everything.
the back
You
of
should
the
come over
shed.
and tell a couple
You
of
should
stories.
write your autobiography.
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell a story, and then he'll tell the story what really did.
What really happened, yeah.
And then Stephen Weiss wants to know if there's any stories from the Sylvian Fripp sessions.
You got any stories, Jerry?
Oh my God! I mean, other than David banishing me, no, he left. All I remember is when everybody disappeared and I couldn't find anyone, and I finally found Robert, and I just felt so bad, and then I started talking to Robert, and I remember Robert said, "Jerry, you just have to remember one thing about David. He's English." That's us. He's English, but those were that was
It was a pretty short session.
my part of it was short, but we got through most
We got through
of
the whole,
material.
almost all the records.
We were incredibly well rehearsed because we had been rehearsing,
Yeah.
and then David came in. I think maybe my sense, you know him better, but I idolize the guy, by the way, because I think Brilliant Trees is one of my favorite all-time
Super
favorite
creative,
records.
isn't it?
Still is. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
brilliant. So I said to Robert, I sort of had this feeling that he would probably want his brother to be the drummer. Like, his brother was the drummer in Japan.
Yeah.
That's his brother.
His
Steve
drum,
Steve
Oh,
his
Jensen.
brother's
yeah, yeah.
great.
That's his
Of course,
brother.
yeah, yeah.
I thought,
didn't
his
know.
brother's great. And Robert said, this is another great thing. He said, I don't think so. His brother won't talk to him. Like, his brother doesn't talk to him anymore. Like, he will not talk to him. So, but we had, we did some great work, listening back to it. Unfortunately, it was, my sense was David got a little overwhelmed because Robert and you and I we had it dialed in.
Maybe.
And it maybe was a little out of his hands to some degree. Maybe he didn't know. Anyway, his parting note to me was, don't play any cowbell. Use a metal snare.
Metal.
I think a metal as
Body.
opposed to a wooden snare. And never play quarter notes on the bass drum.
Right.
Those were the things as he left.
So that's all we've ever done ever since then.
As he left, because I said something. I don't even remember. Do you remember?
Oh, I remember.
What did I
the
say?
thing that was interesting about
I know what I thought I said.
the songs are all written with Robert and David and I as a trio with no drums.
Yeah.
So we had these short little songs. I don't know what it didn't make sense to expand them for some reason. So when we got together with you, the songs are like 4 minutes long. We play them, at least a couple of them, and then we weren't done. We didn't feel like stopping, so we just added a coda, And then on one of the pieces, I think the coda's like 18 minutes long or something. The tape ran, whatever. Maybe we had 15
I just
minute
remember
reels.
that every song
was
was
really
3
long.
minutes and then an 8-minute jam.
Yeah, and so David wanted to get the whole thing in one performance.
Exactly, I remember that.
And we were in the room.
Here?
Yeah,
He had
was
stopped
in here.
playing with
Yeah,
us at this point.
Yeah, I
He
think
stopped playing with us.
I think maybe we were in here, and he wanted to do the whole song as one performance, and David popped his head in and said, "Yeah, and we want to do, I want to do it all as one performance." And Jerry's like, "We could just cut,
Right.
the song and the,
Right.
2 performances together." He said, "I don't want to do that," and Jerry said, "Why?" And right then, I think that was the end of the session.
Yeah, it's good because I mean, I've said much worse than why, like F you, but
Or
but
MF.
no, you know what it was? We did the 3-minute piece and maybe the lengthy jam, and one of them, like the lengthy jam,
I know.
was awesome.
Right.
So it's like, let's just cut the 3-minute piece again and then put it together. And he didn't want to do that, and
do that.
I was stupid. I guess I'm older and a little wiser now, and I might have been kinder in like discussing that, but in any event, when it all came down to it, I came back into the room and he was sitting at the keyboard, and I apologized to him, and he said, I'm sorry, but it doesn't matter. I don't care that you're apologizing. It's like a creative difference or something. Like that was it. It was just we're just done. Just done. And so I thought I was leaving, but he left. He went home.
And then the next day I thought I was leaving.
Why did you do
Because the
something?
vibe was so bad, and I thought, oh, it's probably me, because I'm like the underdog here.
Yeah,
But
I don't
actually,
know.
I mean, the good news is we recorded most all of the record already.
Yeah.
And that made it to
Here,
the release?
in
That was,
the
that, was,
studio.
that was done?
Yeah, it's called
Yeah.
The First Day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I mean,
That's a
I
great
literally, it was like meeting Mickey Mansell,
Right.
or meeting Russell
Yeah.
Wilson,
Right.
and you're just like, dude, you're like, and he just goes like, fuck off, like it's just, he's just, you know what I mean? Not he didn't tell me to fuck off, but it was like he didn't say that, but it was like, when you meet an idol, you want them to be a certain way, and when they're not that way, it was
For me, that
it
was
was
a-
really painful.
That was a recent thing for me. Trey got me in to see a Steve Hackett show in Seattle a little while ago, and the reason I play guitar is because of Steve Hackett. I just really loved everything he did. So got to meet him for the first time, and basically said, great show, Steve. You're the reason I play guitar. And his response was, "How's that working out for you?"
And you didn't say, you don't know who I am?
I know. Trey kind of stuck
Let
up
me
for me.
tell you who I am.
Yeah, Trey stuck
I'm
up for me.
Gumby, damn it.
I do a mean spreadsheet.
So everybody come to all the shows.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
Where are they?
They're everywhere.
All on the website, right?
AJ will follow up, big time with
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
See everybody, same time tomorrow night. Bedtime stories with the